Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and World of Warcraft's recent Direct has unveiled a bunch of new experiences arriving in the future for both retail as well as classic versions of the game. With Classic WoW actually getting a bit of new content with some classic fresh realms as well as classic hardcore servers launching later this evening, which is going to keep things mostly vanilla as things were, except with a couple of quality of life improvements such as the chronobone displays here, improved PvP ranking, a graphics update, better reporting, instant mail between all characters, no buffs or debuffs limit, and even dual specking coming out shortly after launch. If you missed out on the original launch of WoW Classic or simply want to come back to some of the simpler times of World of Warcraft, now could be your perfect opportunity, especially while you wait for more retail War Within content or even some of the classic Mists of Pandaria experiences later down the line. Classic version of WoW can definitely be a bit of a challenging experience, especially when it comes to open world and even leveling, especially if you choose to play on hardcore realms where death is permanent. But to help make your journey through this familiar open world a little bit easier, I did want to put together a list of add-ons that are almost mandatory or even a must if you're looking to upgrade your experience within WoW Classic Journey, if you're diving back into it for the very first time or diving back into it to experience it all over again. If you're interested in keeping up with all the regular happenings when it comes to World of Warcraft, whether it is retail or classic, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. So let's start things slow with some of the very bare bones basics. If you are going to be playing in Classic Fresh coming back to the game, just to make sure that your add-on experience is as easy as it can be, it's a good idea to get some sort of an add-on manager. Whether it is the CurseForge app or WoW Up, which is a third-party app that also does the same, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day which one you pick. Just having some sort of an add-on manager is a big quality of life increase when it comes to finding as well as downloading all of these add-ons directly to WoW, instead of having to manage the actual interface folder directly. And I'll have both of them linked down in the description below, as well as all of the other add-ons listed in this video. And the first set of add-ons I really want to start to recommend are going to be some of the more quality of life improvements that I think are almost mandatory if you want to have as best of a time and easier of a time doing certain things such as questing, for instance. And Questie is going to be one of those add-ons that I think is a must-have. Questie is used by most players whenever they play Classic WoW, as it just updates your map a little bit more with a lot more information regarding your quests, where to go to complete and turn in this quest. But also when picking up new quests, it'll give you additional information regarding those quests. If there's a certain enemy you gotta wait until they respawn, or certain items you gotta pick up, Questie does generally a pretty good job of giving you a little bit extra info when it comes to having as easy of a time completing all of your quests, which is a lot better and a much needed upgrade compared to leveling out in the open world with a baseline WoW UI. Another quality of life improvement that I think everybody should have is probably Bagnon, which allows you to combine your bags into one single inventory screen that you can transfer anywhere on your screen. You can really customize where you want it to. It gives you just a cleaner look at all of your inventory items, and you can organize them a little bit better. It tells you even which items are junk items, so you can sell them immediately, which items your character can't equip, like a mage can't wear maces, for example, or use mail gear. So it'll show you which items you can't even utilize. And it just makes managing all of your inventory a lot easier, especially since inventory has such limited spacing when it comes to leveling and overall playing within a Classic Fresh experience. And while we're in the bags, also another add-on that's pretty useful is better vendor prices. There's technically plenty of other add-ons that do exactly the same thing, but I always preferred better vendor prices. It just tells you the price of an item if you were to vendor it when, let's say, out in the open world, and let's say you're running out of bag space, you're trying to figure out which of these items you should probably get rid of to keep all of the more expensive and more valuable items in your inventory. The better vendor prices gives you a little bit more info regarding how much these items would vendor, but also can be utilized with auction add-ons in order to give you more or less the price of what this item will go on the auction house, so you know whether you want to list it or whether you just should sell it to a vendor just to get that gold up front. And it's just an extra bit of convenience that helps you figure out the overall value of the items within your inventory. Another add-on that's universally good when it comes to Classic, especially when it comes to managing all of your bars and may even be helpful in combat, is OmniCC, which simply shows the cooldowns for all of your abilities in your bars with anything that has a cooldown. This also applies not only for major cooldown abilities, but also shorter CD abilities, as well as trinkets and other items. It just gives you a little bit extra information when it comes to day-to-day questing, which will be especially useful on hardcore realms, where every single cooldown is going to count that much more. And to finish off our quality of life customizations, there's always the add-on of Bartender, or you could use Dominoes or really any type of base UI modification add-on out there, but Bartender is generally a decent one that allows you to shift around and move your bars in any way you see fit, and even add new bars on the screen to help you better customize your whole layout. Because don't get me wrong, the base UI for Classic WoW is very nostalgic if you want to get that authentic experience, but being able to customize your UI compared to having the base one, I mean, the customizable one is always going to fit your preference anyway, so you might as well get Bartender and modify UI to any way you see fit in order to have a more comfortable experience, especially when it comes to when the combat situations get a little bit more hectic. From there, I want to get into some of the more combat-based add-ons in order to help you better manage your character, whether you want to play a caster or a melee, and there's two that are a must-have whether you play one of those two roles, either a 5-second rule, which is a simple add-on which refers to the cooldown of 5 seconds after spending mana before spirit-based regeneration can resume. Because mana is such an important resource for every single caster, whether you play a mage, warlock, or even a healer, or even classes that utilize mana as a resource but don't really play a caster properly, like a hunter or let's say a red pally for instance. Every single one of those playstyles needs to be able to manage that resource of mana, and being able to at least know when you start to recover mana passively is going to be key when it comes to you succeeding with group content. The other add-on that's a must-have is also Weapon Swing Timer, which tells you whenever your character is ready to auto-attack, whether it is with a melee weapon or with a ranged weapon like that of a hunter. It allows you to potentially close the gap to the target to land a melee hit, and then back away as soon as you land the melee hit to maybe create some distance from the target so you're not constantly getting auto-attacked by them. Then to close the gap again for that melee auto-attack and then back out of there immediately. This one is incredibly good for hunters in particular because it tells you exactly when your character is ready to shoot your bow. So if you're trying to kite out an enemy while trying to reduce the amount of damage taken directly to your health bar, it's incredibly good for that in particular, and makes the whole playstyle of melee, which auto attacks is going to be a huge portion of your overall damage, a lot easier for you to play around with and fully utilize. Now the next add-on is going to be Details. I feel like this one doesn't really need a lot of explanation. It's just an add-on that helps you track exactly how much damage your character is doing, how much damage everybody else in your group is doing, and it just gives you more detailed info regarding the damage that you put out, but also the damage that you take. It's very self-explanatory, and it'll continue to be useful, especially for somebody who wants to be a little bit more performance-oriented. Another add-on that's also highly recommended is Plater Nameplates, because basic Blizzard plates do not give you a lot of information regarding the enemy that you're fighting, the debuffs you're putting on them, or even just how much health the enemy has, but Plater does a lot of those things in a much better way. It makes plates above enemies' heads much easier to read and separate to figure out which enemy you are attacking, and they're also very customizable, and you can even import other players' profiles into your own Plater in order to be able to get their type of UI look in order to better customize your combat experience. And Plater still falls into a category of some of the performance-based add-ons, since it does help give you more information regarding the enemy you're currently fighting, as well as helps you manage some of the debuffs that you're putting up against those targets. Now the next few add-ons are going to be focusing on mostly smaller quality of life improvements, but still improvements either way. Simple things like Leatrix Maps, which allows you to modify the map in any way you see fit. Normally the map is either completely covering up your screen or very tiny, but with this add-on you're able to modify it by quite a bit. It just gives you a little bit more functionality, whether you want to bring it up, squish it down, place it anywhere on your screen, but also it gives you little pointers like where Spirit Healer 4 location is if you haven't discovered an area or have discovered, because that could be some useful experience when first leveling a character, as well as where each zone exits and leaves out, and how zones are connected to one another within the various parts of the open world content. It's a fantastic add-on that I think everybody should have, but also gives you cursor coordinates as well as player coordinates. So if you're having a hard time, let's say, finding an item, or if, let's say, if another player recommends you, hey, go to these coordinates to get this certain rare or maybe a certain quest NPC, you'll be able to, with the actual map, Leatrix, utilize the coordinates in order to have an easier time orienting yourself around the open world, which I think is a fairly nice overall experience. Another add-on that's very useful is also Atlas Loot, because you can't normally look up what kind of loot enemies from raids or dungeons might even drop with the baseline UI, but you can look that stuff up with Atlas Loot. So if you're going to be doing ultimate runs, you want to see what bosses drop which items. For instance, if let's say you never played the classic fresh version before, you want to familiarize yourself with all the items, there's no easy way of actually finding the loot tables without going to outside sources or getting an add-on, and that's where Atlas Loot comes in. Not only does Atlas Loot provide you information regarding drops from dungeons and raids, but you can also go over crafting, faction bonuses from different reputations, PvP, as well as some of the other little collection tables that you can find throughout the variety of different content. And it just makes the whole experience of trying to figure out the loot within Classic a lot easier to manage. Now, the next add-on that I actually find quite useful is What's Training, which is an add-on that simply tells you when your character and your class can train certain skills and at what level. To access What's Training is really intuitive and easy. You open up your spell book where you have your general, your spec abilities, but also down below, what can I train? And it actually gives you exactly all the abilities you'll be able to train at various level intervals. What is available right now, what is coming soon, and what is not yet available until you hit certain level breakpoints. And it goes all the way down towards the highest levels, but also has even some of the more spec-based abilities as well, depending on how you end up specializing your characters. This can be incredibly helpful when it comes to playing out in the open world. Let's say you're out about questing. This add-on can give you an idea of when you should go back to the main city, one of the main player hubs of Alliance or Horde, to train all of your abilities to make that future questing experience a little bit easier. And this way you can kind of utilize your time spent out in the open world more efficiently and only go back to the main city only when you absolutely have to, spending more time leveling a character and less time traversing from town back and forth. The only other add-on worth mentioning is Auctionator, and technically there's a lot of different add-ons that give you a lot of information regarding making more informed decisions when it comes to auctioning all of your items, but having some sort of an add-on to give you more info is better than having none, because the baseline UI for the auction house is pretty limited. But Auctionator, at the very bare minimum, makes managing your auctions and finding best prices for all of the items much easier than the very basic UI. And technically, if you do want to be more in-depth when it comes to auction house stuff, you could get Auctioneer or Trade Skill Master, but it takes a little bit of time to learn how to use both of those add-ons appropriately in order to fully maximize their benefits. But at the very least, Auctionator at least gives you a little bit more to work with. And it's a fantastic starting point that allows you to create a potential shopping list for all of the different items you're going to need, whether for professions or whether for, let's say, endgame content. And if you're trying to sell a bunch of your items, it gives you a little bit more information regarding how this item is selling, exactly what prices they're going for, and it really removes a lot of the need for you to have to find all of these items yourself, as it just provides you all this listing right in front of your screen right here in order to help you make more informed decisions whether you should sell these items, whether they're really worth selling when it comes to the total price. And it just makes the whole managing the auction house a little bit easier than having to auction the items separately, but also having to browse for all these items, since the add-on does it basically for you all on its own. But as always, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching this Classic WoW update, and I do hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did enjoy it or found this list of add-ons informative, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community if you got any more questions, as it is probably the easiest place to reach out to me directly. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.